this afternoon with Sarah Hawkins and some memories of some life about the Ison family and all sorts of things that we haven't heard about in a long time. Tell me what you know about the history of the Ison family. I don't know much about that.
Well, the history was checked into by Mrs. Frank Ison Jr., Mrs. Edwina Ison, who was sister-in-law of R.D. Ison,
Mm-hmm.
my father. Also by my niece, Diane Ison.
Mm-hmm.
And they came up with practically the same information that came from different sources. So we felt like it was pretty authentic. And according to that report, the Ison name started in 16 something or another, maybe 1625, and it was in Troutdale, England, which later we found was on the River Ice, I-S-E, and through friends in England, we were able to determine finally through another friend that the Ison name was taken from that river. And so we don't know too much between the founding of the family in approximately 1625 until later on, and I do not have the figures with me now. But the name over the centuries was shortened and lengthened to include several variations, like Isaiah for one, Isom, I-S-O-M another, and so forth. But only a few sources gave an Ison name, I-S-O-N, and it seems that they were really also his topic.
Um, what it was like growing up with someone with the name Ison. Was that a common name around?
No, it was actually I think Granddad Ison and his family came. They had to come over in to Savannah when they had they weren't slaves but convicts that they had been released, and they were filtered all through the South. And from any of those, I don't know what their name might have been, but we do have that they settled in. Some of them settled in North Carolina and South Carolina and South Georgia. R.D. Ison Sr. was head of that part of the Ison population. And he was R.D. Ison Sr., and then from that came R.D. Ison 1, 2, 3, and 4, who were my father, my brother, my nephew, and my great-nephew.
Mm.
And that's about all of them, except
Now, and talk about growing up in Atlanta in the 1910 to 1920 and the 1920 to 1930 period. Talk a little bit about that.
well, 1910 was the year I was born, and my two brothers followed.
Okay, there you go.
Didn't you?
My two brothers followed. Dave Jr. was R.D. Ison Jr., and he was born in 1912. And then later on, Robert Lindsay Ison. And that's an interesting side note here. Robert Lindsay was a financier in Atlanta, and he was a friend of R.D. Ison Sr. And when R.D. Ison wanted some backing to start his loan business. Um, Hopkins, Lindsay Hopkins was the man that financed it.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, that's the way the name Lindsay came into being, because they named Robert Lindsay in honor of Mr. Lindsay Hopkins. And Dave Ison had 5 children. I guess I know the names. Let's see. R.D. Ison III. Diane Ison, Barbara Ison, Janice Ison, and Vicky Ison. I know too.
Let's go back even before they got married and so on. How'd you get along with your brothers?
Well, we fought like all brothers and sisters. But in general, we were very compatible.
Yeah.
And,
Did you have a very strict upbringing?
no, not strict enough problem. But according to nowadays behavior. But it was a happy childhood. And Papa, Miss Dyson came to be enjoyed a farm that he had bought out from Atlanta, and we called him the gentleman farmer. He actually never farmed it, but had a man that worked for him that did, and we had many happy days and memories of the farm.
Talk to me about Mimi.
Mimi was a family of four girls and 3 boys. The 3 boys were all killed in either infancy or early teenagers. One was had some, I don't know whether it was smallpox, it was pneumonia or something. No, it was measles that usually doesn't kill, but it did him. And then there were 2 that were killed by trains. One of them was trying to hop a car as it went through the little town of I'll think of it in a minute. And then the other 2, one was killed by, as I said, by a train, and another was crossing the tracks in Atlanta. He just gotten a job there, and he crossed in front of one train that missed one train that was coming, and killed by the one behind that. So
When did Roz and Hilda get married?
They married in June the 3rd, 1908. And I was born in 1910, so it wasn't a shotgun wedding. Anyway, we, as I said, it was a happy childhood, and Papa, as we all affectionately called him, was very good and very lenient with his children. And in later life, too, he became their mentor, so to speak, and that confessor. He was always ready to listen to them. And always worked at it. He was quite a football fan, mainly because his younger son, Bob, was a player at Georgia Tech. And in 1939, he was eligible to graduate, but because he had had a year left that he could play football, he stayed on an extra year. And when he did come out of the service, it was right, when he did finish that year, he went right into the service in submarine duty. And it was remarkable that they would even take him, because he was 6'3". And as a result, he came out awfully stooped there for a while until he learned to hold his shoulders up again. And Dave only had one eye, so I think that's the reason he never was called into service, although he did have 5 children. Was a great tease then and is to this day.
Yeah.
Robert was very fun-loving and just a good guy. And he's sorely missed. He died in, what's this? He died in 1990.
Yeah.
And Dave is still living as I am.
When you were younger, was
Well,
that a vacation?
That was and Mother and Daddy were going to take the two boys to Cuba for Christmas. And they were going to fly over on a seaplane. And I had just had a miscarriage. Hilda at that time was not quite 2. And Mother and Daddy thought I didn't seem to be snapping out of having some problems, and they asked me if I wanted to go to Cuba with them. Naturally, I did.
Of course.
But I also had a husband and a young baby at home. But Dave, Rose knew how close we all were, and he was an only child. And so he said he and his mother would take care of Hilda, and off I went. I always seemed to manage to get in a trip or two here and there.
How did you meet Papa?
He was 6 years older than I am and was already out of school and working for General Tire and Rubber Company at $125 a month. And I used to ride by General Motors when they had an office downtown, and Daddy had given me a real pretty baby turquoise colored convertible Chrysler with a rumble seat. I was a catch me out.
You were.
And one night I had a date with Charlie Aiken, whom I have not seen since, I don't believe. But when he took me home, as we drove up under the portico shade, there was a man standing with one of the, what they call those hats, bowlers or stiff brim straw hat.
Straw hat.
And he was very good looking, and I thought, where did he drop from? Right in my own backyard. And it turned out he was to have a date with my cousin. He had a date with my cousin who was going to spend the night with me, Martha Ison. And so I invited Louis to come after we were introduced, asked him to come out to open house the next day before I went back to school. And that was quite the thing to do in Atlanta in those days, with so many colleges, Georgia Tech, Emory, Oglethorpe, to name a few. And the prep schools that were near Atlanta too. And so there was one boy that I dated and fell madly in love with, and didn't want me to tell Liz, because as soon as I saw him, I fell out of love with the other one. But see, Louis, as I said, was working, and he gave me a ring on my 21st birthday, March 12th, 21 to Charles.
31.
Yeah, 1931 when we married. We had a large formal wedding at night, and it was on the Emory University campus in a new church that had just been built. And it was a full moonlight night. It couldn't have been a prettier night. And because he was such a football fan, we went to Athens, Georgia on our honeymoon to see Tech and Georgia play. So I realized then what my life would be like. Sitting on the sidelines, watching Brother Robert play, or staying with Louis while he watched somebody play.
Tell us about the Depression, what it was like.
Well, I was very fortunate that I didn't feel it too much because, as I said, Papa had bought this farm out from Atlanta. And they raised chickens and hogs and sheep and just about every animal that was edible. And so we never lacked meat. any kind.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, the I wasn't really not aware of the times as much.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't I guess I didn't realize it how hard times were because I just hadn't participated in
Yeah.
Popeye's Humor Day.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, were you married during the Depression?
I married in '31.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
except for having a big fancy wedding,
Mm-hmm.
it was a very, very pretty wedding.
Yeah.
And an unusual thing, I guess, for some people. But my mother was my matron of honor.
Is that right?
My mother was only
Mm-hmm.
40 when I married, so
Mm-hmm.
she was
Mm.
young, and
Yeah.
she was my matron.
Mm.
And my cousin Martha Ison was my maid of honor. And then I
Mm-hmm.
had 3 bridesmaids.
Mm.
As I said, we went to Athens, Georgia on our honeymoon. Sorry, Nashville, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Asheville, North Carolina on our honeymoon. And left early to come back to go to the football game. But on our way back to Atlanta, we were going by Athens to see the game, and we'd gotten up real early to go to get to Athens in time. And I was on my honeymoon. I still had to get up at 6 o'clock to go see that football game.
Mm-hmm.
And so on our way down, Louis driving thought he had been around all the curves there were on the road, but he had missed one, and he turned the car to keep from, well, he actually hit a guardrail to keep from going over this ravine.
Wow.
And when we stopped, it was within a foot of going over this steep ravine. And all I could think of was honeymoon couple killed, Atlanta couple killed on honeymoon.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as
Right after 4.
Oh, Charlie, she's going to need her directions because she's going to need to leave here
I've got,
in half an hour.
let's see, I've got 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Having this miscarriage. And as far as Hilda's concerned, the things stand out in her mind were the fact that she had nephritis, which was, she was about 5 years old and had to stay in bed for 3 months. And did you ever try to keep a 5-year-old active child quiet, according to the doctor's direction? Impossible. But we did the best we could, and fortunately she did overcome having had nephritis. And in later years, her adopted son, Jamie, had nephritis. And it was rather singular with him that Wilbur had it, because there was no connection there between the two. And Bill had his share of problems. He had polio, as I had described earlier. I did describe that. And he also had had a rupture in his kidney. He and young Dave Ison, who was about the same age, were throwing rocks at each other. Nice boy time pastime. And one of them caught Bill inside and actually tore a small hole in it. And there again, I had to keep him quiet until this would heal up, his kidneys, and otherwise he would have had to have surgery and possibly removal of the kidney, but he came out of that very well. And then during the war, of course, I had full responsibility of the children which was overseas. And the reason he was overseas is that he was in the reserve and was called up in 40 or 41, and before Pearl Harbor, so that was was called up in January before Pearl Harbor. What date would that be?
Pearl
21st?
Harbor was 41.
41. This was in January of 41, so he was in a full year before. And he rose from, in that capacity, he rose from captain in the finance department to become a full-fledged colonel before he got his orders relieved from duty. But those were some hard times. And we were fortunate in that, as I mentioned the farm earlier, we were able to eat pretty well in those days, better than most people, might add. And then he came home in 45, February of 45, and he immediately applied to get out. But he outranked all the people that were in the post here. And so when they turned him down, he went to a higher post and was able to get his release because they had no job. He was not trying to shirk his duty, but mainly because they didn't have a job for him, and he outranked everybody in the headquarters. And so they finally let him go. And it was a mighty happy homecoming.
Yeah.
Because having been gone so long. But during that time, as I said, I had full responsibility for the children. And with a lot of help from my mother and father and my grandmother, who was still living. And after the war was over and Lewis came home, then we decided to move to West Palm Beach, Florida, because of Bill disaster. And so we landed in June of 46 in West Palm Beach, Florida, to a house that had been rented for us by Pat Fisher, who was not only a good friend of Lewis's, but a class, lived in the same class, and the same fraternity. And so Lewis invested some money in Pat's insurance agency and went in business there, where he stayed until 1950. And Charles might remember the trip we took to Gadsden, Alabama, to look at the office over there. At that time, Lewis was trying to find his roots, where he was going from there. And I remember the funny incident on the way home. Of course, before the days of air conditioning. And Charles was, for some reason, was the only one we'd taken with us. I don't remember now why, but when we were coming home in South Florida, South Georgia, we hit in the middle of the afternoon, and hell could not be much harder than it was driving down in that non-air-conditioned car. And we looked back one time, and Charles had all his clothes off, but his undershorts. He was about to die, he said. But then, let's see where else after we moved to Florida, we were very fortunate later on to get a house on 32nd Street, because the sale of most houses and the building of most houses was frozen just prior after the war, until the economy could catch up or something. Anyway, we didn't have a home we did get a home on 32nd Street, which was adequate, but it wasn't what we had really planned to have. And but to show you how prices had risen during the Depression, that house sold for $1,500, and we ended up paying $13,000 for it. So and we're lucky to get it, glad to get it, but always looking for a better house and a larger house, which we ended up taking and buying in 1953, I guess.
That was to 212.
Yeah. And I lived, Charles, I'm not sure what about that date. It was I'm getting that mixed up with Bruce's death. Um, but it was a brand new house and had plenty of room. We had 5 bedrooms and 4 baths. And so that was where we made our home for the next 30 years. And then,
Talk about the disciplining of your children, Hilda, Bill, Charles, and Sue.
but they probably didn't get as many spankings as they needed. But at least they were disciplined, and Lois was very much of a disciplinarian. And yet he was a fair one, and the children respected him. With me, they could get by with murder almost. So it's a good thing that one of us was a little strict, I guess.
I remember the hairbrush.
Yeah. Tell me about that. I remember the switch that we went down during the war when you were 3 years old. Rose was overseas, and I took the 3 children. This was some BS before Sue. And I took the 3 children to Daytona Beach. You know, on the train. We went down on the train and stayed down there for about, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks. Anyway, my mother was always insisting that the children say ma'am and yes ma'am and so on, yes sir. And she watched their manners very carefully. As a result, Charles called in the switch, and my mother happened to pick up a do-right. That was her. The favorite thing was, if you don't do right, I'm going to spank you, I'm going to switch you. So that became the Willard switch became a do-right. And one day down at the beach, we walked down from the cottage to the water. And on the way back, there was some willowy seaweed waving in the breeze. And Charles was just about 3 years old. And he stopped to pick a piece of this seaweed. And I asked him what he was doing. He said, I'm getting a switch, a do-right from Mimi. I don't like that other one she had. And of course, that was a real switch. After the girls came home one night when I was washing the dishes, he came back and said to me, I don't like my daddy. I wish he'd go back where he came from. And the reason for him saying that was that his daddy had corrected him, whereas he'd never had any correction to speak of from his mother. And so, but he minded very well. They all did. And
How did having Sue change your life?
we very much wanted to know, that's a real, can I tell Dave's story?
Sure.
That was real transition went to happen for a girl after so many years. Charles was 7 and a half when she was born, and when during the war, when Hilda was at a very impressionable age, all her friends mothers were having babies, and she wanted to know why we couldn't have a baby girl. And I told her that we probably would when Daddy came home. And she said, well, why can't we have it while he's gone and surprise him? We didn't take very much of that idea. And he did come home in 45. And Sue was born, came home in 46. Sue was born in 47. And born on Christmas Day, so we always felt like she was our Christmas angel. And Bill probably spoiled her more than any of the other children because Charles was jealous to a degree, and Hilda was dating and didn't have time for a baby to take care of. So it all fell on, Bill myself. And Bill was so crazy about it, he would take up in the morning, get her ready for the day, change her diaper, whatever had to be done. And if he came home in the afternoon from school and didn't have a piece of gum or something in his pocket, he would put on his bicycle on the handlebars and off they'd go and to the drugstore to get something for her. And as a result of that affinity, to this day I feel like that Bill and Sue are closer probably than the other children are. I know it now that her daddy's gone. She turns to Bill for a lot of things. And what else?
What was the favorite Christmas time at your?
Christmas, we would have a dinner on Christmas Eve at Sue was born, because we felt like Christmas was partially her day. And so we had our Christmas dinner, and so Christmas Day she could invite her friends or invite she wanted to come in. And one time during the summer I had a birthday party for her, but she took a dim view of that. She said that wasn't her birthday and she wanted to go back and have it on the 25th. So we had a lot of memories of that. And
Who played Santa Claus?
when I went, even when I had Sue, I went to the hospital at about 8 o'clock on Christmas Eve, and she was born a little after 1 on Christmas morning. And before I'd gone to the hospital, though, I had put out all the Santa Claus things in a little pile in the trunk of the car with everybody's name on it. So,
What a mom.
so Louis didn't have to worry about who got what. And Louis was a very attentive father, but he did believe in discipline for his children. And he was an only child and had never had to pick up anything. His mother saw to it that his mother saw to it that he picked up his clothes and hung them up. And until the day he died, he was always very meticulous like that. And me, who had my upbringing had been so entirely different, because I was the only girl with 6 boy cousins and 3 brothers, so they all called me sister. And up until they died, they'd stay with me. I guess Dave and I are the only ones left. That shakes you up when you think about it. What else do you need to know?
Tell us about where you were when World War II broke out.
We were up in Winchester, Tennessee, had rented a house up there, because Lewis had been ordered to duty, and they told him that he would be there for the duration. Of course, nobody knew what the duration was, but he was assured that his job would last for the duration, which was the biggest mistake of the year, because he only lasted 2 months more at camp before he got his orders to go overseas. And so that, for 3 or 4 months, he was supposed to have gone over on the, what was the name of that ship that turned on the side in the harbor in New York? It'll come to him in a minute. And he was supposed to have gone over on that ship, the whole V Corps was. And he was sabotaged and turned on his side. And as a result, he spent the coldest winter he ever experienced in his life at Camp Trenton, New Jersey, and waiting to go abroad. And because it was one of the first ships, at that time he was a captain, and it was one of the first ships that went over after war was declared. And he had luxurious headquarters, always sleeping quarters now were certainly very more than adequate, because later on they would crowd as many as 3 or 4 into a stateroom, and he went up early enough where they had not been taking too many troops at that time. But as I said earlier, he was over there until February of 45.
Did you get a lot of letters from him?
I think every day he was better about writing than I was, I must admit. But then I had 3 children to look after, and I was doing my war duty that day. I did work as a volunteer at the blood bank, and which was interesting work and certainly necessary work. But I practically lost all religion I ever had, because I would go down on my appointed days to work, and half the time my maid would not show up, and I'd say a few choice words and have to go home and be there when the children got home from school. And so that worked pretty well for a while, but I did make some nice contacts during the war through that association.
Where did you live? Or where did the family live?
Rock Springs Road, 1647. And North Rock Springs Road. And 2 or 3 of the families in the neighborhood. One was John Welch's. Others were Eric Van Hook. My aunt Edwina Ison up the street. And the Tutwilers who lived next door to me. But I was the only one that beside the Van Hooks that had any young children. But we did have a nice neighborhood.
Do you remember any stories about Hilda at that residence, just for fun?
No, do you know him? I don't know.
No, I don't. Where did she go to school?
I didn't tell you where I went. I went to I went to private school in Atlanta, North Avenue Presbyterian School, and I graduated in 1928, and during that time we did not suffer. Things were not hard for us. My father had made plenty of money, lots of money, and he liked to live the good life. And I remember during the war, prior to the war, he had, it was before the war, because it was 1960. Date 1917. It was 1918 is when I graduated.
1928?
1928.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a private girls' school. And on bad days, there was a streetcar that ran in front of the house there on Poncelin Avenue, which I usually would take, but on bad days, Mother would insist that I let the chauffeur drive me to school. And I was so embarrassed that I was the only one driving up in a Cadillac, in a Ford, what's it, Pierce?
Pierce Arrow?
Pierce Arrow, that I would get in the foot of the car and hide till I got to school. And in school, I did not have a very outstanding record and all, but I did win I was in my senior class. I was named to the senior court, which was the May Queen and her attendants. And it had, well, I also won the little cup for the best all-over athlete. And it was just about 3-4 inches, but it was 11 cup. Just about that high.
What were the fashions like when you were in high school?
The drop waistline, definitely.
Yeah.
And more or less like they're doing today. I mean, some wore them long, some wore them short. But mostly they were kind of in between, one in it. But I can remember the drop waistline because that was such a radical change
Mhm.
from what we'd had earlier.
Did you ever have a bob? I know that was pretty radical.
Did I have what?
A bob.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
and when I went off to college, I learned to smoke,
Mhm.
and thank goodness after how many years? I did give it up, and I'm very much in favor of all young people, particularly giving up smoking, drinking, and few other vices.
What was the favorite trip you took with Lewis? You traveled so much.
Well, mainly not until 1960, after the children were all grown and everything, did we do a lot of traveling. Prior to that, we did have some nice trips through the Insurance Association. He became president of the Florida Association, the Underwriters of Insurance, and we had some very nice trips during the years that he was on the board. And to this day, I still hear occasionally from some of the people. This year particularly, I noticed there were fewer and fewer cards.
Mhm.
People are just not sending them because of prices, I guess, and what else. But I miss getting, well, I couldn't send them this year, the last 2 or 3 years, because I have loss of central vision, precisely,
Macular.
what have I got, Charles?
Macular
Macular degeneration, which affects the central vision. And other than that, I'm in pretty good health.
I know about Heidi. What other pets did you have?
When we first got the farm, Papa got a pony. Oh, we had that pony when we lived on Rock Spring Road. In 1926, we had a white pony named Easter, and we had a little wicker cart that you'd step up in the back. And then when we moved out to the farm, we went out less and less, so that Daddy got rid of strawberry was her name. Yeah.
We were talking about pets. You mentioned Easter.
Yeah, and then and I'm trying to figure out what year it was that we had 2 ponies we kept out at the farm. Strawberry and
Peanut.
Peanut was one.
Shortcake was one.
Shortcake and strawberry was mates, I think. And then Peanuts was the one that nipped soon. Just walked up behind her. She was in the pasture and just nipped and scared her to death.
What did you like to do most when you were out at the farm?
Swim. We had it was like a dammed up big hole that fed by spring water, and you can imagine how cold it was all the year round. And ride horseback. Even after I married, Papa would come out to the farm and come by and get me, and we'd go out to the farm and ride horseback. And I'm trying to think there was one horse, Mickey, that was my favorite, and they'd always saddle Mickey up for me. And one day, Papa and I were riding, and Mickey, we were headed for the barn, and Papa decided he wanted to go up another road to get back to the house, and he hollered to me, and so when I reined Mickey in, Mickey didn't want to go back to the house, up the other road. He wanted to go back to the barn. So he reared on me, threw me off, and fell on top of me. And my father was watching the whole scene. And of course he thought I had broken my neck or something. And it turned out that Mickey was all right. once he got up and all. But I had a broken ankle, and so I was raised for a number of days and weeks about the horse falling on me and me getting hurt and the horse survived.
How about house pets?
Uh, you never liked to have pets too much, did you? But Bill was the one who was always bringing the stray cats home and all. And he had some parakeets. He was going to decide he'd raise parakeets, and that was a disaster. They walked out from under the little shelter on the house in a rainstorm and completely just died. Drowned probably. And Bill always had a dog and a cat or two. And he was going to camp that first summer he was a baby, so he was 11. And he told me, please, to watch out for the cat that she was expecting most any time. And so I made a little nest or whatever you do for a cat, and made her stay outside in the garage. And practically the first night I put her out there, she gave birth to one cat, one kitten, which is unusual. And but when she did, she pulled down an evening dress that I had brought down from Atlanta, from my mother's, and I'd never worn it. And it was, to me, the prettiest dress I ever had. And I guess because I was denied ever wearing it. But it had been mother's, and she had been taken ill right after she bought it, so it never had been used. And back in those days, you had to have an adjuster if you had a claim in insurance and all. And under our homeowners, the damage the cat did came under that. So I was fully compensated for the dress I never wore. But you never saw such a mess in your life as that one cat put in. And so then after that, I said, no more cats, we'll have dogs. And parrot, no, I mentioned parakeets. Berbers. And, but one of the favorite pets of all the children was Whitey? No.
Chief.
Huh? Chief. Chief was a white boxer that had been given to Bill. And most affectionate dog. He would, as soon as I let him out of the pen in the afternoon, when he get home from school, he'd run and knock Sue down for some reason, because I guess because she was so little. And when we got ready to move on Pershing Way, we decided to get rid of the dog because we were on the lot that one fenced in and needed a lot of landscaping, and I could just see that dog ripping up everything we were planting. So under protest, we got rid of it. Protest from Bill. And then after we moved down to Pershing Way, trying to think what date that was. Probably soon after we moved down there, and that was in 53. But not George. You were, how old were you at
13.
when we moved down? It was in 1933.
Be 52, probably 52, 53.
Well, we moved in 53, so it had to be probably right after that.
Yeah.
And we got Heidi.
It was in the middle of the 7th grade. So, yeah, I remember that.
And they would do
'Cause that was the way that after that in the 8th grade at the Boys Club.
Yeah. Anyway, the dog was, Heidi was the pet of all of us, and even in the neighborhood. And she lived to be 13 years. And I guess that was the last pet we had. Because by that time nobody was paying attention to him but me. And well, she died actually. Yeah, I mean, she, yeah. She was ill and died at the vets. But she lived a full life. So I didn't see him after the war. Very much after the war. And he was the only real steady one except for a maid named Sarah Lee Walker, who was a very good cook and a good nurse and all. But as soon as she'd get wages on the weekend, that was the last of her for 3 or 4 days. And she was not very dependable that way, but she was a big help to me during the war. When I was sitting up at night, she'd sit up and hold Bill in his arms, when he had asthma attack. And she'd come in and stay with me. You don't forget things like that. And you all in your generation and the generations we're seeing now, this is all very foreign to you all, I'm sure, because values have changed so much, and people are so quick to jump at every chance they can to better themselves without taking put people into consideration. But sure, except when we moved to Florida, we lost contact with a lot of our friends in Atlanta because we've been in Florida for so many years.
Talk about some of your friends in Florida and how that's developed.
Well, my main three to go back the longest, Flo Hewitt, whose husband's a judge, Bobby B. Burns, whose late husband was my attorney and good friend, and she is a very close friend of mine. And now that she's moved into the same condominium where I live, I see more of her, and she's been a big help to me since I had very poor eyesight, and I never had to give up driving. But other than that, I'm in pretty good physical condition, but not quite ready to take on the world.
How about some of the other friends in the department?
Well, right offhand is Jane Gaudy, who is a bridge teacher and has written a book on bridge. Mac Renfro, lives across the hall from him, known for 40 years. Judge and Ms. Knott have just moved in, and they've been friends for 30-some odd. And we have one lady named Gracie, we all think a great deal of. And to show you how close I've friends we were, there were 6 of us that went to Austria about 3 years ago and took 3 apartments over there that were like chalets. And that was one of the best vacations we've had.
Videotape on the life and times of Sarah. Most of it was an hour-long interview that we did here in Chicago area about 2 years ago, December of 1991, I believe. We picked up some excerpts from Jenny's wedding and from some other places. What wonderful memories. The lesson here is to take pictures, video pictures, still pictures of any kind of one another so that we have these memories to cherish for the rest of our lives. Take care. I love you all.